Have you ever stopped to think that what you put on your plate could be silently determining the life or death of your kidneys? These two small organs, which fit in the palm of your hand, work tirelessly, day and night, filtering impurities, balancing minerals, and even controlling your body's blood pressure. They are like water filters for life. When they work well, everything flows clearly. But when they start to fail, the whole body suffers. And the scariest detail? They often fail silently, without obvious pain, until it's too late. What almost no one realizes is that, among the various factors that can overload the kidneys, there is a group of foods consumed every day that act as a slow poison: certain proteins. Yes, the same proteins that the body needs to live can become, depending on the choice and quantity, fatal enemies of the kidneys, especially after the age of 60, when kidney function naturally is no longer the same. But here's the other side of the coin, the side that is almost never talked about. While some proteins are true saboteurs, accelerating wear and tear and promoting kidney failure, other proteins act as guardians, reducing inflammation, alleviating the toxin load, and even strengthening the kidney's resistance. It's as if the same nutrient could be both poison and medicine, depending on where it comes from. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover together now: the 6 proteins that most destroy the kidneys of those over 60. And the 4 that can, almost miraculously, help save them. Imagine the impact of knowing this information and having the power to protect your kidneys just by choosing what to put on your plate more carefully. From this point on, every detail you hear may change the way you view food. After all, if most people believe that aging means accepting inevitable losses, here you will discover that it is possible to act at the root of the problem. It's not about expensive medicines or complicated treatments, but about understanding the invisible villains and allies in your routine. If you feel that this alert has already caught your attention, take this opportunity to leave your like. This simple gesture not only supports this channel, but also shows that you care about your health and want more content that can transform your life. Get ready, because from now on, we are going to embark on a journey of discovery that can make all the difference to your vitality, your longevity, and, above all, your freedom to live without depending on machines or medications, so that your kidneys can do what they were born to do: keep you alive and energized. When we think of vital organs, we immediately think of the heart that beats non-stop or the lungs that give us the breath of life. But almost no one remembers the kidneys, the silent guardians that work hidden away, without asking for attention, without making a sound. And it is precisely this silence that makes them so vulnerable. We only appreciate them when something starts to go wrong. The kidneys function as highly sophisticated filters. Every minute, they receive about 20% of the blood pumped by the heart. It's as if all your blood were cleaned and recycled several times a day. They remove impurities, protein residues, excess salt, unnecessary water, and even maintain the balance of minerals such as calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and sodium. Without this regulation, the body simply collapses. Imagine if the filters in a swimming pool stopped working. In a short time, the water would become cloudy, toxic, and impossible to use. The same thing happens with the human body. Without kidneys, life becomes unsustainable. But the kidneys don't stop there. They also produce essential hormones, such as erythropoietin, which stimulates the production of red blood cells, maintaining the body's energy and oxygenation. They are also responsible for activating vitamin D, which is essential for strong bones and immunity. When the kidneys become diseased, the consequences are not just swollen legs or high blood pressure. They include constant fatigue, fragile bones, anemia, and recurrent infections. And all of this can begin silently, without obvious symptoms in the early stages. Now, why is this detail so important for people over 60? Because over time, the natural ability of the kidneys to filter decreases. It's like an engine that has already run hundreds of thousands of miles. It still works, but it requires more care. And it is in this scenario that diet takes on enormous importance. What you choose to put on your plate can be an ally that preserves these filters, or an enemy that accelerates their wear and tear. Many people believe that the only threat to the kidneys is excess salt. In fact, salt is a powerful villain, but it is not the only one. There are proteins that, when consumed without balance, silently overload the kidneys. The body can handle them for a while, but each day of excess is like another drop in a glass that, at some point, overflows. And here comes the surprising part: you may be consuming exactly these proteins right now, believing that you are taking care of your health. Bacon for breakfast, processed chicken for lunch, cheese for dinner. It all seems normal, even healthy in some cases, but behind it all is an invisible load of toxins that the kidneys need to eliminate. What if I told you that the secret to protecting your kidneys is not to cut all protein out of your life, but to choose the right sources wisely? There are those that act as an unbearable weight and others that act as a balm, helping the kidneys to perform their function more easily. And that's what we're going to reveal from now on. What are these proteins that, because they are so common, have gone unnoticed by you until today, and how they can be, at the same time, the greatest risk and the greatest salvation for your kidney health? Protein. This word carries with it an aura of health. After all, who has never heard that you need to eat plenty of protein to keep your muscles strong, have energy, and even age independently? In fact, protein is an essential pillar of life. It is present in every cell and makes up muscles, bones, enzymes, and hormones. Without it, there is no repair, no defense, no vitality. But like almost everything in biology, the secret is not in the more, the better, but in balance. When consumed in excess, protein goes from medicine to poison, especially for the kidneys. Imagine a coffee filter, put in the right amount of powder, and the water passes through easily, extracting the flavor. Now, pour in an absurd amount and see what happens. The water takes longer to pass, overflows, and the filter wears out. The kidneys are exactly like this filter. With each excessive portion of protein, they have to work twice as hard to break down, metabolize, and eliminate the excess. And it doesn't stop there. Protein metabolism generates nitrogenous waste, such as urea and creatinine. These wastes need to be eliminated by the kidneys. If production increases too much, the filter becomes overloaded. The result? More pressure inside the filter units, greater wear on the membranes, and, over time, loss of efficiency. What seems like just one extra plate of meat is actually an invisible weight placed on these organs every day. Now think about it, if this excess occurs in young, healthy kidneys, it already represents an additional effort.
But when we talk about people over 60 whose filtration rate is naturally not as robust, the effect is multiplied. It's like demanding the same power from an old engine as when it left the factory. It may respond for a while, but the parts wear out and failure approaches. What makes this issue even more dangerous is that many elderly people, afraid of losing muscle mass, increase their protein consumption indiscriminately. Shakes, supplements, double portions of meat, without realizing that this excess, instead of preserving strength, can accelerate the path to kidney failure. It is not uncommon to find people who have never had kidney problems, but who in routine tests discover high creatinine or signs of wear and tear precisely because of this dietary imbalance. And here's a fact that few people know. Studies show that high-protein diets are associated with increased albuminuria, the presence of protein in the urine. This is a clear sign that the kidneys are not doing their job. And when this barrier breaks down, it means that the filters are becoming too porous, allowing something that should remain in the blood to pass through. This is one of the first signs of silent kidney failure. But don't worry, the goal here is not to demonize all protein. Quite the contrary. It is necessary and irreplaceable. The question is which proteins we choose and how much we put on our plates. Balance can turn an enemy into an ally. And that's why understanding who the hidden villains are in our daily lives is the next step in this journey. Get ready, because now we're going to reveal, one by one, the 6 types of protein that are most harmful to the kidneys of people over 60. You probably consume some of them believing that you are doing your body good. Few foods carry as much contradiction as processed meats. Crispy bacon, golden sausages in the frying pan, thinly sliced ham, aromatic salami. These are flavors that awaken memories, reminiscent of family gatherings, Sunday breakfast, and even quick snacks in everyday life. But for the kidneys, these delicacies have another name, disguised enemies. Science has made it clear, processed meats are directly associated with an increase in cardiovascular disease, progression of kidney failure, and even certain types of cancer. The reason is not only the protein itself, but the extras that come with it. Each slice carries a combination of sodium, nitrates, nitrites, and chemical preservatives that form a veritable silent bomb inside the body. Sodium is one of the main villains. To preserve and enhance flavor, manufacturers add very high amounts of this mineral. When excess sodium enters the body, it retains fluids, increases blood pressure, and forces the kidneys to work harder. Remember, high blood pressure is one of the leading causes of kidney failure worldwide. Now imagine the daily overload of someone who eats ham for breakfast, sausage for lunch, and sausage for dinner. Does that seem like an exaggeration? For many elderly people, this is exactly their routine. And it's not just salt. Nitrates and nitrites used as preservatives are converted into compounds called nitrosamines, which are not only toxic to the liver and heart, but also inflame the kidneys. This constant inflammation gradually damages the delicate renal structures, as if small cracks were appearing with every meal. Now here's the most dangerous detail. Many people believe that small portions are harmless. Oh, it's just a slice of ham, just a little sausage. But the daily accumulation over months and years is what silently undermines kidney health. It is not a big impact all at once, but small drops of poison added up every day. Research shows that individuals who regularly consume processed meats have a significantly higher risk of developing chronic kidney disease compared to those who limit or avoid this type of food. And what's most striking is that even when we control for other factors, such as blood pressure and diabetes, the risk remains high. This means that processed meat alone is enough to increase the danger. And why is this so relevant for people over 60? Because at this stage of life, the body can no longer compensate for repeated aggressions as efficiently as before. A young person's kidneys can withstand a little more daily abuse, but an older person's kidneys already have a history of intense work, accumulated scars, and reduced functional reserve. The good news is that this is a totally preventable threat. Unlike genetic factors or inherited diseases, here the choice is literally in your hands. Every time you open the refrigerator and decide between packaged ham or a more natural option, you are deciding whether to relieve or overload your kidneys. And if you think processed meats are the biggest villains, get ready. There is another type of meat present on most people's plates that can be even more treacherous when consumed in excess. If processed meats are seen as obvious villains, red meat occupies a more ambiguous place. For many, it symbolizes strength, energy, and even status. A good steak on the plate, a Sunday barbecue, or a well-seasoned stew are part of the routine of millions of people. But behind this irresistible flavor lies a worrying detail. Frequent and excessive consumption of red meat is one of the biggest silent threats to kidney health, especially after the age of 60. The protein in beef or pork is high quality, that's true. It contains all the essential amino acids the body needs to maintain strong muscles and tissues. But the way the body metabolizes this protein generates waste that the kidneys need to eliminate in large quantities. Among them are urea and creatinine, which accumulate in the blood in excess and become toxic. The more red meat you consume, the heavier this filtration work becomes. Another critical point is heme iron, which is abundant in red meat. This type of iron, despite being well absorbed by the body, can cause oxidative stress, a kind of internal rust that damages cells and tissues, including the delicate structures of the kidneys. Studies show that diets rich in red meat are associated with an increased risk of chronic kidney disease, precisely because of this combination of nitrogenous waste, oxidizing iron, and inflammatory compounds. And we can't forget about saturated fats. They don't act directly on the kidneys, but they increase the risk of atherosclerosis, clogging blood vessels that carry blood to all organs, including the kidneys. A kidney without a good blood supply is like a filter without water flow. It loses efficiency, accumulates dirt, and degrades over time. You may ask yourself, but then can I never eat red meat again? The answer is not so radical. The problem is not occasional consumption, but excess and frequency. A dish with beef or pork a few times a week may be acceptable for many, as long as it is balanced with other lighter sources of protein. The danger lies in daily consumption, excessive portions, and the idea that red meat is the main staple of the diet. And here's an important thought. As we age, the need for protein remains, but the kidney's ability to cope with excesses decreases. What was tolerable at age 30 or 40 can become harmful after age 60.
Therefore, insisting on diets rich in red meat at this stage of life is like driving an old car at full throttle every day. It can handle it for a while, but the chance of breaking down in the middle of the road increases greatly. There is another detail that deserves attention: the method of preparation. Meat grilled at high temperatures produces toxic compounds called heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These substances, in addition to being carcinogenic, increase inflammation and damage the kidneys. In other words, it is not enough to simply reduce the amount, the way it is cooked also makes a difference. And if you thought red meat was the biggest risk, Know that there is an even more treacherous meat, one that many consider the healthiest and lightest option, but which, depending on its origin, can pose invisible threats to the kidneys. When we talk about healthier alternatives to red meat, chicken is usually the first option that comes to mind. It is light, affordable, versatile, and part of millions of people's daily meals. But here's a surprising revelation: not all chicken is the same. Industrialized chicken, raised on a large scale for rapid production, can be a real hidden enemy to the kidneys, especially after the age of 60. Why is this? The secret lies in how these animals are raised and processed. To accelerate growth, many are fed feed enriched with antibiotics and even hormones in some cases, as well as chemical additives that alter the composition of the meat. The result is a food that, although it seems harmless, carries substances that the body needs to process with extra effort. In addition, much of the chicken sold in supermarkets undergoes a process called brine injection. Basically, water mixed with sodium and preservatives is injected into the meat to increase its weight and shelf life. This practice significantly increases the amount of sodium in the product. And as we already know, excess sodium retains fluids, raises blood pressure, and overloads the kidneys. It's like putting coarse sand in a delicate filter. Over time, damage is inevitable. Another critical point is the compounds resulting from preparation. When industrialized chicken is fried in reused oil or roasted at high temperatures, it releases inflammatory substances that, added to sodium and additives, create a cocktail that is harmful to the body. For the kidneys, this means more waste to eliminate, more work, and consequently, more wear and tear. What makes this danger even greater is the false sense of security. Many elderly people replace red meat with chicken, believing they are making the best possible choice. But if this chicken comes from intensive production and is consumed in excess, the effect can be almost as harmful as that of beef or pork. Now, it's not about completely eliminating chicken from the diet. The issue is quality and origin. Free-range chicken, raised more naturally, tends to have fewer additives, less sodium, and more clean nutrients. But industrialized chicken, the kind sold in trays with flashy labels, already carries with it a legacy of substances that the kidneys need to filter out with every meal. And there is another detail that few people realize: frequent consumption of chicken skin, rich in saturated fat and toxins from preparation, is another risk factor for blood vessels and, consequently, for renal circulation. Kidneys with hardened vessels lose their ability to filter efficiently, paving the way for hypertension and kidney failure. Now imagine the scene: a 65-year-old person, believing they are taking care of their health, swaps their daily steak for processed chicken breast. Gradually, without realizing it, their blood pressure begins to rise, tests show elevated creatinine levels, and fatigue becomes constant. What seemed like a smart choice turns out to be a silent trap. And if you think the problem stops there, you're wrong. Because in addition to meat, processed, red, and industrialized, there is another group of proteins that seems harmless but, in excess, also weighs directly on the kidneys: dairy products. Milk, cheese, yogurt, these foods are present on almost every table, whether at breakfast, afternoon snack, or even as an accompaniment to main meals. From an early age, we learn that they strengthen bones, aid growth, and provide calcium to prevent fractures. But what few people know is that, after the age of 60, excessive consumption of dairy products can become a serious threat to the kidneys. The problem is not just the protein itself, but the minerals that come with it. Calcium and phosphorus, when ingested in excess, create an overload for the kidneys. These minerals need to be delicately balanced in the blood, and it is the kidneys that do this job. When there is too much calcium circulating, the risk of kidney stones increases, the famous kidney stones, which are extremely painful and dangerous. In addition, high levels of phosphorus can slowly poison the body, as weakened kidneys have difficulty eliminating it. Now, think of hard cheeses such as Parmesan or Gouda, which are extremely rich in sodium and phosphorus. They are irresistible to the palate, but for the kidneys, they are like a daily marathon. The excess sodium in these cheeses not only contributes to high blood pressure, but also retains fluids, further increasing the burden on the kidneys. It is a silent combination that goes unnoticed. Whole milk and high-fat yogurts also have their weight. The saturated fats present in these foods promote inflammation and impair cardiovascular health. And since the kidneys and heart are closely linked after all, blood needs good circulation to be filtered. Any aggression to the cardiovascular system ends up directly affecting kidney function. Another important point is that, as they age, many people develop lactose intolerance. This means that when they consume milk and dairy products, they suffer from poor digestion, gas, and intestinal inflammation. This inflammation can generate byproducts that, once again, require more work from the kidneys to be eliminated. In other words, what seemed to be just digestive discomfort has much greater repercussions on the body. This does not mean that dairy products should be completely eliminated. The secret, once again, lies in balance and choosing the right versions. Low-fat dairy products, without excess sodium and consumed in moderate portions, can be part of a healthy diet. But making cheese, milk, and full-fat yogurt the basis of your daily diet is like adding extra weight to a bridge that is already showing signs of wear and tear. And here's an interesting detail: many older people believe they need to increase their calcium intake through dairy products to prevent osteoporosis. But they forget that without healthy kidneys, this calcium is not properly utilized. In other words, taking care of your kidneys also means taking care of your bones. Now, if you thought dairy products were at the bottom of the list of villains, get ready. There is an even more common food, consumed every day at breakfast and in quick meals, which can also be a heavy burden on the kidneys when consumed in excess: eggs. The egg is considered by many to be the perfect food. It really does contain an impressive combination of nutrients: high-quality protein, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. The white is almost pure protein, while the yolk is concentrated in good fats and choline, which is essential for the brain. But when it comes to kidneys, there is a fine line between benefit and excess. Consuming eggs in balanced amounts is unlikely to be a problem. The risk arises when they become the almost exclusive basis of the diet, especially the yolks. Why? Because the metabolism of eggs generates nitrogenous waste that needs to be filtered. When intake exceeds the natural capacity of the kidneys, which already decreases after age 60, these wastes accumulate in the blood, causing more stress than the body can handle. In addition, excess cholesterol in egg yolks affects cardiovascular health. And as we have seen, the heart and kidneys are closely connected. Clogged vessels and compromised circulation mean less irrigated and therefore more fragile kidneys. In other words, overdoing it on eggs can, without realizing it, accelerate kidney wear and tear. And if eggs already call for moderation, protein supplements take this challenge to another level. Whey protein, high-protein shakes, and even protein-enriched bars may seem like allies for those seeking to maintain muscle mass after age 60. The problem is that they concentrate in a glass or bar the amount of protein that would normally be ingested in an entire meal. For a young body with fully functioning kidneys, this overload can even be managed. But in the elderly, the effect is like running a worn-out engine at full power every day. The result? Kidney fatigue, increased creatinine, and an accelerated risk of failure. And the most dangerous thing is that many consume these products believing they are protecting their health, without realizing that they may be shortening the life of their kidneys. Imagine an elderly person who decides to supplement their diet with 3 or 4 protein shakes a day to compensate for muscle loss. In the short term, they may even notice increased energy and strength. But routine tests begin to show worrying signs: protein in the urine, high blood pressure, abnormal creatinine levels. These are warning signs from the body that it cannot handle so much extra weight. Therefore, it is essential to understand, protein is necessary, but not in excessive and concentrated doses. Balance is what keeps the kidneys functioning in harmony, without invisible overloads. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever consumed too many eggs, or even tried protein shakes believing they were the best choice? Leave your comment below. Your experience may be the warning that someone else needs to rethink their choices. And get ready, because from here on out, our journey takes a different turn. We already know the 6 villains, those that corrode the kidneys little by little. But the good news is that not all proteins are enemies. There are 4 silent guardians, true allies, that can save and even strengthen your kidneys after the age of 60. After learning about the 6 villains that gradually undermine kidney health, it may seem that eating is a minefield, that every choice represents an invisible risk. But here's the good news: not all proteins are enemies. On the contrary, there are sources that can relieve the burden on the kidneys, reduce inflammation, and even prolong the vitality of these silent filters. It's as if there were 2 sides to the same coin: on one side, foods that intoxicate and overload; on the other, clean, light, and protective proteins that act almost like a balm for the body. The secret is not to cut all protein out of your life, but to choose those that nourish without punishing your kidneys. Science confirms this. Long-term studies show that older adults who replace some of their heavy animal protein with lighter options have a lower risk of kidney failure, better blood pressure control, and even reduced inflammatory markers in the blood. It's proof that small changes in routine can result in big transformations in health. Now, imagine the scene: while some foods leave microlesions in the kidney filters, others arrive as repairers, bringing nutrients that protect blood vessels, relieve inflammation, and reduce the toxic load. It's as if, with every meal, you could choose between accelerating wear and tear or prolonging the life of your kidneys. And here's another encouraging detail: these proteins are not rare, expensive, or hard to find. They are available in regular supermarkets, farmers markets, and even in traditional recipes you already know. Often, it is not necessary to completely reinvent your diet, but rather to adjust your choices in quantities. Think about it: if for years you have been accustomed to putting foods on your plate that seemed harmless but were silently overloading your kidneys, how about now turning that same routine into a protective shield? The turning point is in awareness. Knowing who the villains are is already a victory. Knowing the guardians is your chance to take control of your health. And that's exactly what we're going to reveal from now on: the 4 guardians of the kidneys. For sources of protein that not only nourish the body, but also offer a kind of relief for these organs that work tirelessly. By including them in your diet, you'll be giving your kidneys the chance to function more easily, for much longer. Get ready, because in the next step you will discover how simple choices can mean the difference between aging with limitations or living with freedom, energy, and independence. If so far we have talked about the proteins that slowly corrode the kidneys, now it's time to turn the tables. Among the best choices you can make after the age of 60, 2 sources of protein stand out not only for their nutritional quality but also for the protection they offer to the filters of life: cold water fish and legumes. Let's start with fish. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, and fresh tuna are rich in lean, easily digestible proteins, but they have a powerful advantage: omega-3 fatty acids. This nutrient is a true natural anti-inflammatory. It works by reducing inflammatory processes that damage blood vessels and, consequently, the kidneys. In addition, it improves circulation, helps control blood pressure, and reduces the risk of atherosclerosis, all factors directly linked to the preservation of kidney function. Imagine the kidneys as filters immersed in a stream of water. If this stream is clean and smooth, the filter remains intact. But if the water is turbulent and loaded with impurities, the filter wears out. The omega-3 in fish acts precisely by smoothing this stream, making the kidneys work lighter and more efficient. Another benefit of fish is the high bioavailability of its proteins, meaning that the body uses them more easily, generating less waste for the kidneys to eliminate. For those who already show signs of kidney failure, this is essential. Less waste means less overload. But it's not just fish that deserves to be highlighted. Legumes, such as beans, lentils, chickpeas, and peas, are often underestimated treasures. They provide high-quality vegetable protein, combined with fiber that plays a crucial role. It helps reduce the absorption of toxins in the intestine and control blood sugar levels. This protects not only the kidneys, but also the heart and metabolism as a whole. The fiber in legumes acts like little sponges that capture waste before it reaches the bloodstream, reducing the burden on the kidneys. In addition, by stabilizing blood sugar, they reduce the damage caused by diabetes, one of the leading causes of kidney failure worldwide. And here's an interesting detail: studies have shown that replacing part of the animal protein with legumes reduces albuminuria, that early sign that the kidneys are failing. This means that including beans in lunch or lentil soup and dinner may be more than a cultural choice. It may literally be a way to preserve the useful life of the kidneys. Of course, it's important to remember that for those who already have severely compromised kidney function, the amount of protein, even vegetable protein, needs to be adjusted under medical supervision. But for most people over the age of 60, regularly including legumes in your diet is a safe and beneficial choice. Now, think about the difference. While processed meats and heavy supplements leave a trail of waste and inflammation, fish and legumes offer lightness, protection, and vitality. It's like trading a weight on your back for a helping hand that helps carry the burden. And the good news is that these allies are within everyone's reach. No luxury or fancy diets are needed. A simple meal of grilled fish and a serving of beans or chickpeas is enough to transform the way your kidneys work. But the list of guardians doesn't stop there. There are 2 other sources of protein that complete this protective quartet, offering unique and surprising benefits. After talking about the benefits of fish and legumes, it's time to meet the last two guardians of kidney health. They may seem simple, but they have unique properties that relieve the burden on the kidneys and help preserve their function for much longer: egg whites and fermented soy. Let's start with egg whites. Unlike the yolk, which contains fats and cholesterol, egg whites are practically pure protein. This means they provide the essential amino acids the body needs, but without the excesses that often overload the kidneys. For people with delicate kidney function, this difference is crucial. While other proteins leave heavy residues, egg whites provide building energy with much less weight. Imagine that the kidneys are like workers in a factory. When they receive egg whites, the work is quick and almost mess-free. With other more complex proteins, however, the effort is greater, waste accumulates, and the work becomes heavy. That is why many dietary plans for kidney patients recommend the use of egg whites instead of other protein sources. Another important detail: egg whites can be used in a variety of ways, in omelets, pancakes, homemade shakes, or even cooked plain. It is an affordable way to ensure clean protein without extra risks. Now let's move on to fermented soy, a little explored gem in Western diets, but valued for centuries in Eastern cultures. Products such as tempeh and miso not only provide high-quality vegetable protein, but also contain bioactive compounds that reduce inflammation and strengthen the cardiovascular system. Fermentation makes soybeans more digestible by breaking down anti-nutrients that hinder mineral absorption. The result is a lighter food with natural probiotics that improve gut health, and when the gut is working well, fewer toxins reach the blood for the kidneys to filter. It's an indirect but powerful aid. In addition, fermented soy products contain isoflavones, which have a protective effect against hypertension and inflammatory processes that erode the renal vessels. In other words, they help keep circulation clean and stable, which means less strain on the kidneys. Think about it: by including egg whites and fermented soy in your daily routine, you are giving your kidneys a well-deserved rest. It's like swapping a road full of stones for a smooth and safe path. Small choices, made repeatedly, build a solid foundation for aging with more freedom and vitality. And here's something essential: health is not just individual. Sharing information can save lives. How many people around you still believe that overdoing meat or protein supplements is a sign of health? How many remain unaware that simple choices, such as a plate of beans or egg whites, can prolong the life of their kidneys? If this content made sense to you, share it now with family and friends. It may seem like a small gesture, but for someone who is unaware of this information, it can be the difference between living freely or facing painful limitations in the future. And to close this journey, we still have one last step: to gather everything we've learned, summarize the main points, and show you how you can take control of your health starting today. We have reached the moment to put all the pieces of this puzzle together. Throughout this journey, we have seen that the kidneys are not just organs hidden inside the body; they are silent guardians of life, responsible for filtering impurities, balancing minerals, regulating blood pressure, and keeping energy circulating in every cell. Without them functioning properly, vitality gradually fades away. It has also become clear that protein, that highly valued nutrient, can play two opposing roles. When poorly chosen or consumed in excess, it becomes a slow poison, depositing waste and overloading every filter in the body. This is how we identified the 6 villains: processed meats full of salt and preservatives, excess red meat, industrialized chicken loaded with sodium, heavy dairy products, excessive eggs, and concentrated protein supplements. Each of them, in its own way, contributes to accelerating kidney wear and tear. But we also saw that there is no need to live in fear of protein. On the contrary, conscious choices can transform the same nutrient into a protective shield. We discovered the 4 guardians: cold water fish, which provide the anti-inflammatory power of omega-3, legumes, which combine clean protein and detoxifying fiber, egg whites, an almost perfect source of amino acids without extra weight, and fermented soy, rich in bioactive compounds that reduce inflammation and strengthen the body as a whole. These choices do not require luxury, fancy diets, or impossible restrictions. They are simple, accessible changes that can be incorporated into anyone's daily life. The real secret is not in drastic measures, but in small decisions made with awareness. Each meal becomes an opportunity to preserve the kidneys, strengthen health, and prolong quality of life. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: aging does not mean resigning yourself to inevitable losses. Aging can be synonymous with clarity, better choices, and preserved vitality. Your kidneys have worked for you for decades. Now it's your turn to take care of them with respect, wisdom, and self-love. Think about this the next time you look at your plate. Ask yourself, is this choice overburdening or relieving my kidneys? This simple reflection can be the difference between living with limitations or enjoying more years of freedom, energy, and independence. If this content has opened your eyes and brought clarity to your choices, subscribe to the channel now. Join this community of people who believe that health after 60 can be stronger than ever. Here you will find knowledge, hope, and motivation to continue living with ease. And remember, your kidneys may be silent, but your choices speak loudly every day. Take care of them and they will take care of you today, tomorrow, and for many years to come.